Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Everybody hear me okay? Oh, well, then that makes sense. So, good morning and welcome to Using AI in Grant Writing. My name is Jennifer Bardugo, and we're going to spend an hour today. I have curriculum for a 2-hour class, but we are going to power through as quickly as possible and make sure you have this information. So first thing during this presentation, if you have any questions or if you have questions after the fact, on your screen is the information where to send your questions because we can't take live questions during this presentation. But feel free to send anything that you would like answered to this address, and we'll either address it live or we will address it after the fact. All right. Let me hide this meeting control. All right. Okay. I'm gonna pull up my document here and all right. Let's grab that document. All right, so I am using just a simple Word document for the purposes of this presentation so that if you would like that document sent to you, you have all the information that I'm presenting and there's nothing hidden from you with that. So please feel free to request that document in that same email, info@jeffersoncountywv.org, and we'll send you a copy of this document that we're using. All right, so this course will teach you how to understand the steps to develop a comprehensive agency profile, which is essentially a generic set of answers for the agency you're writing the grant for, so that when you need to use that information to create a particular grant application, you will have something to give to ChatGPT to answer those questions for you. So you're going to learn how to create a comprehensive agency profile, and then you are going to learn how to use ChatGPT to answer specific grant questions. And then you will learn how to use essential integrated research, which is for ChatGPT is called Scholar GPT. I'm going to show you how to use that. And then we're going to, if we have time, we're going to try to quickly apply this to all of this information to an actual demo proposal. So let's get started. All right. So when we're talking about creating an agency profile, there's some key information that you're going to need to collect before you even get into ChatGPT. You're going to need things like your mission statement. You're going to need to know the history of the agency. You're going to need to know, what are the programs that this agency operates, and then you want to know why they do that. So what's the need that they're trying to meet? And you kind of start with this general understanding of what does this agency do? What do they do it for? So what's the purpose they're serving in this community? And then with that information, we can go and grab data to support that need. So demonstrating that need with data, and then compiling all of that into the appropriate statement. So for the purposes of a grant application, you are going to need to have a program statement, right? So you're going to need a program description. This is going to describe essentially in a nutshell all of the things that your agency does. So it's not just one single program, although you may on an actual grant application only be applying for a single program. You're only trying to get one single program funded, depending on what work your agency does. But you're in the generic program description, you're going to want to describe all of the programs your agency does, because you're going to want to use the other programs as context for ChatGPT to be able to understand more about the agency that it's going to be helping assist write grant applications. So we're going to develop a program description. And then so in the handout, which I will not go into right now, because if you want a copy of this, you're welcome to have one. I've had, there's a suggested prompt for actually asking ChatGPT to help you with that. But you can have a copy of that if you want to, so we won't go into that. So we're going to ask ChatGPT to help us craft a needs statement, a goals statement, methodology and implementation plan. So what are the methods we're going to use in our program? And then how is our program going to be implemented? We're going to be asking for budget and financial information from ChatGPT. So assisting with that will require some gathering of data ahead of time. If the budget that you're wanting at the end is going to reflect an actual budget you could use, if you're not comfortable putting any information into ChatGPT. So some people are very selective about what they put in there. So budget information might be one of those areas you're just looking for guidance from ChatGPT, and that's something that it can do. And you just kind of set it loose to tell you what the budget line items might be for this particular project if you're in the development stage of the project. And so we're gonna work on budget and financial information, and then a sustainability plan. These are kind of the general guidelines. So if you were if you were applying for a job and you hadn't been in the job market for a while, you might go back and brush up your resume, but you're not applying for a specific job when you're doing that. You're just making sure your resume actually reflects all the things that you would want any employer to know about you. And then when you go actually apply for a job, you're going to specify certain things or highlight certain aspects of your training for that specific application. That's basically what we're doing here, is we're taking a very general view of our agency, and we are creating solid language that then we can feed to ChatGPT to help us answer specific questions and develop these specific sections within a real grant application. And then we just kind of maintain this information over time. We might make changes to it. We might like a particular answer on an actual application and update our general agency profile to reflect that very awesome new language we like. We do that. I do that frequently with agencies. When I get a result from ChatGPT that I like even better than what it's given me in the past, I will update that language. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get started. So I have a ChatGPT open here. What I've asked it to do is give me some generic information. This is just for the Jefferson County Animal Control, but it's fictitious, except for essentially what I did is I fed it the website information. So I'm going to show you how to do that really quickly, because I do want you to know how to find what I'm doing, and I want you to be able to replicate what I'm doing here. So we're going to just type in Jefferson County Animal Control. We're just going to take it through the whole process of creating sort of a fake profile, agency profile for animal control. So here's their website. So essentially all I'm doing is pulling up the information. This is publicly available because you just saw me type it into the web address. So nothing in here is proprietary. They're not the type of agency that does any proprietary work. So there's nothing about their information or their data sets that is going to compromise their ability to succeed or do anything. So ChatGPT would be a perfect solution for this kind of work, because this is not sensitive information that we're giving ChatGPT. Okay. So all I'm going to do is hit Control-C to copy the whole page. Must not have been. Oh, I wonder, why can't I do that? Okay, well, I'm going to highlight the whole page, copy it. I don't know why Control-C is not working. Oh, because I didn't do it right. That's right. It's Control-A to copy all, Control-C to copy. All right, so we're going to go over to ChatGPT, and so I have that highlighted. That's what I have right now. So it's in my clipboard currently. And so what I'm going to tell ChatGPT is I'm applying for, no, let me start with this. I'm creating a generic agency profile. Oops. For Jefferson County Animal Control. Oops. And I would like help with each section. Oops.
And there's a request that, they get the document.
Sure. Sure. Yep. Actually, I think I emailed it to you yesterday. So I think you actually already have that one. Yep. So perfect. I was kind of anticipating that. So that's great. Okay, so I'm creating a generic agency profile for Jefferson County Animal Control. Did you notice my spelling's not perfect? So it doesn't have to be perfect. It'll know what you mean. And I would like help with each section. So right now it's just understanding that that's what I want it to do. So it has some suggestions right off the bat. I would go ahead and let it generate that because it's not going to mess you up to have it generate that. Plus, if you're new to the process, that might be helpful to you, right? So it's telling you, okay, the standard structure we can work with is this. And that's wonderful. It'll assist you in kind of taking basic information it understands and suggesting that to you. So that's a good thing. All right. So right now we're going to tell it that I'm going to give you information. Oops. About the agency. All right. And then I'm just pasting their website information into this document. So I already have created fake data. So we're going to just pretend that on their website, there's data that I would be able to have access to. So I pasted their actual website, and then I'm actually going to paste this fake information that I created. Okay. So I'm just going to go grab that from ChatGPT, which I already got. All right. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. And just in that same dialog box, I'm just going to put that in there too. And so that's because I asked it for a demo profile. So it goes ahead and starts spitting out information, but I can tell it what specific information that I'm wanting. So I'm going to go back to my document, and this is one of the reasons I'm giving you this document. Let me use that. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to give it this section. So I'm just going to copy and paste this section of what I want it to give me in this agency profile. So I'm going to just copy it from here. And I'm going to tell it the sections I want. Oops, goal statement, methodology and implementation plan, budget and financial sustainability. Okay. And I'm going ahead and copying the prompts with it because it will filter those out. Okay. Oops. I don't think I copied it. I think I just highlighted it. So let me grab that and that in there. There we go. All right, so now it has all of that information. So here's the sections. And so from the handout, it started with a program description. And so automatically, based on just the website information and a little bit of data that I had it create, and all I asked it to create was some, how many dogs we serve in a year, those kinds of things. And it's all fake data based on uneducated, handles an estimated 1,815 animals annually. So, but very quickly, based on just the information I've given it, it's already written a program statement, a needs statement, goal statement, methodology and implementation plan, all of these sections that we've asked it for. See how it created a budget? Now, it doesn't know what the actual budget of the agency is, but it's guessing based on what it may cost to take care of that many animals and do those things, what might be necessary. And so it comes up with a fairly good idea. What that's helpful for is maybe on your actual budget, as you're proposing to put together a budget for your agency, it might come up with line items that you hadn't thought about before as being needed as needed for your budget. And so it might help you add lines that you might not have thought of. Okay. And so just by giving it a list of sections that we want and by giving it a little bit of information, it's already given us a very good start. So then what we would do is we'd go through and we'd read each section and make sure that it reflects accurately. So is this an accurate description of your programs? And if not, then you want to go through and you want to edit it and you want to tell it, okay, no. So what I do when I use ChatGPT, because I want it to be able to help me long term, is if it makes a mistake in the details about the business that I'm going to be writing grants for a long time, I go ahead and correct its understanding. So then I would say, oh, let me correct your understanding on something you said, and then I highlight it and paste it back into the prompt bar. And then I say, you said this, and I quote it. And then I say, but actually it's this. You say that we, serve 75,000 dogs a year. We actually only serve 1,850, and then it immediately corrects that data set in my narrative. And then it will remember that for future as well. Okay. And so by teaching it, you improve the quality of the answers you will get from it from that point on. So it's a very important labor intensive process sometimes, but it's critical that when you're in this stage where you're building the agency profile, that you make sure it completely accurately describes what it is you're trying to do with your business, why you are in business. So this one, so for animal control, it's very clinical work that they do, right? So your agency is going to maybe be different, and there's going to be some nuance in why it is you decided to run your program this way instead of another way. And so you may want to give some description to that. But the key is that whatever you create in this particular program description needs to accurately reflect what you're trying to do with your business. It needs to be as accurate as possible. Okay, because ChatGPT is going to use that statement to build your answers that we're going to give it in just a minute. Okay, so you want that information to be accurate. Also, you're going to find out fairly quickly by going through this process if your program description is lacking something, because what happens when ChatGPT doesn't know some information, there's a gap in its in the information you've given it, is it begins to create. It'll fill those gaps in, and it's called hallucinating. The ChatGPT will hallucinate, but really what it's doing is just so hallucinating, of course, is seeing something that's not there, right? So it's creating something that's not there based on the information. So it begins to extrapolate. Oh, well, if you do this, then I can assume that you do this also. And maybe you don't do that other thing. So you really do want to go through and read that very carefully and correct its understanding so that it understands your business very well. Because the whole point is that essentially it begins to be an expert on the agency that you're an expert on, and it can answer grant questions as well or better than you can, because it knows the information inside and out and can think actually within the information and extrapolate answers to new questions based on that information you've already given it. It's very powerful. So that the program's description needs to be complete, needs to be accurate. And then the needs statement is next. And so this is really demonstrating what problem are you solving in your community. So clearly, the county animal control is pretty straightforward, but you may need to to describe, so for example, when I've helped JCCM write grants, we frequently say, because other states, so the grantor might not be in your state, right? So we're applying for grants in West Virginia from a West Virginia foundation. They might not know that, hey, the state of West Virginia actually doesn't fund county level social services. And especially if the grantors outside of West Virginia, many other states do that. And so they would make the assumption that all states do that. And so you might need to explain that we exist because of this need. We're filling in this gap, or whatever the situation is that you're addressing with your business. You need to be able to put that into words. So when you're going through that, and so I might so with this example, we might say, you know, our desire is to be a no-kill shelter, you know, and actually I think they might be one. But you know, we might give description to that. Other shelters might do it this way, but our desire is to do this. And so we really prioritize, you know, working with rescue agencies to take additional animals that would otherwise need to be euthanized or whatever. So we might put that in our need statement and then tell them how many animals that is a year. And so we're asking for funding for operations because this extra thing that we do, which is, you know, a positive thing, might require extra funding. Okay. And so the point is that you're really doing a very good job of helping ChatGPT understand with your need statement why you exist. Even if your need statement for this includes a whole lot of extra information you would not normally want to give on a grant application, this would be a very good place to load a whole lot of information in there because it's giving context to ChatGPT to answer the actual grant questions on real grant opportunities with enough information to be able to explain in detail why you're in business and what problem are you addressing, and then be able to talk about how you're addressing that and why that is going to work. Okay. So your need statement needs to be developed. Okay, and then your goals statement. So if you don't know goals, so like maybe you're starting you're starting a project and like, oh my goodness, what would goals even be? It will suggest them. It will use its hallucinating feature to suggest some goals. And so you might not need 5 goals. You might only want to pick 3. You might want to condense them into 3, right? So there may be things that you can combine. But you want to make sure that those goals really reflect your actual goals, things that you would actually want for your business. And it's not just something ChatGPT made up for you, but you don't actually intend to do, or most importantly, can't do. Because maybe it's going to say that you're going to do some sort of intensive data collection and you actually don't even have the ability to do that right now. You're certainly not going to want to make that one of your goals. Okay. So, and then this is your methodology. So you're going to actually want to really, you know, think about how are we actually going to implement our program and what are the methods we're going to use, right? And so it's obviously suggesting some based on what it already knows, but the more information you give it, the more it can do that effectively and more accurately help you come up with methodology. So I don't think animal control is going to purchase an outfit, a mobile transport van. So that obviously would be something that I would need to correct its thinking on. So let's just do that real quick. So, oops. So let me correct your thinking on something. You said, and then I just copy it. Oops, let's get the whole thing. And then put it back in here. Oops. And so it has its own sentence. In reality, they will not be doing this, not be buying a van. Maybe we say they rely on partner agencies for that. Right. So it's an opportunity to give it additional information because maybe I didn't think, you know, because obviously it did all this based on the information I just had it create. But maybe as I was writing all of that up or I was giving it the information about my agency, I didn't even think about, oh, well, yeah, how do we deal with, you know, partnering with agencies? What do partner agencies do with us? And that gives me, that sparked that now. And I can actually go through and in this very same box, I can talk about, you know, partnering. So I can say, oh, they rely on partner agencies for this. And then we want to say, in addition, we want to fully describe in our program description which isn't the section we're working on, right? We're a few sections down, but I just thought of it now, so I can tell it. It's sophisticated enough to take that information and correct those appropriate sections. So you don't have to go back to that section and edit it. You can just tell it right here. Oh, in our program description, I want to mention the 50 community partners we have, okay? However many we have, okay? And it will update that and make that correction. Okay, so it clarifies what it understands. The Jefferson County Animal Control does not purchase its own transport van, but relies on partner agencies. They have 50 organization strong community partners. Okay, great. And then see how it immediately gave me an updated program description. Okay, and so again, you're going to want to read that to make sure it represented what you were trying to say correctly. If I find that it doesn't quite understand, I try to say, okay, what I'm trying to communicate is, and I then by backing up, like basically for its ability to capture what I'm trying to communicate, I might need to back up one level of logic. So I'm talking about community partners, but I'm talking about community partners because I actually want this grant agency to understand that we are a very well-connected partner in this community, and all of these agencies work hand in hand to make sure that no dogs have to be euthanized or whatever the situation is. And by backing up in the logic to explain this broader concept of what I'm trying to communicate, that actually gives ChatGPT the context it needs to be able to write better sentences in that subject area. Okay. And so that's important because you might be trying to get it to describe something and it's just not understanding what your overall message is. And so it starts kind of giving its own concept of what it wants to say. And you begin to refine that by making sure it understands what you're trying to communicate. Okay. All right, so it's asking, would you like me to update the methodology and need statement? Yes, please. Okay, and I always try to be polite. And I try to thank it when I like what it did because it teaches it. Okay, and so you're much more likely to get better answers when you're polite. Okay. Do we have any questions or anybody has anything yet? Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not skipping over questions. Okay, so it's going to, now it has updated my need statement. It's updated my methodology and implementation plan as well because I made that change. It's updated those other sections. Okay, so I personally like it to give me the whole thing in one shot. If it makes a change, I want to see the whole document with the changes. So then I would ask, show me the changes, show me the whole document with the changes. Or the whole narrative with the changes. Because in my brain, it helps me to see the whole thing again, what it's done up to that point. And so it's giving me the whole thing again. It's the program description, the need statement, again, it updated those. And then the methodology and implementation plan again, and the budget. Okay, now it doesn't need a van, so it took that off of there, right? I'm assuming that was on there before. And then a sustainability plan. So some of what we do in grant writing, of course, there is knowledge to grant writing. You do actually understand that some of the little there's strategy involved in grant writing that isn't necessarily something I know just because I'm using ChatGPT. But what I can do is ask ChatGPT what strategy to use when applying for this, grant opportunity. And so, for example, if I want to, I'm trying to think of a good example. So if I'm trying to raise money for example, animal control has been in their existing building for a while, they're running into some challenges, they're looking at, potentially having a new space at some point in the future. Maybe I'm talking about those things in this grant application this year, because that's something that I might ask this partner to help me with next year. Or I might be asking them for a piece of it, and then I might be asking some other agencies for another piece. And so we might mention that we have a 5-year plan to replace the building, for example, right? And so what that does is it says, hey, because these grantors are knowledgeable. They know your business type better than you do because they're getting grant applications from hundreds of places just like you all across the country. And so they see these things day in and day out. And so they're, even if they're not trying to, they're saying, oh, this person's asking for money for some serious repairs. Are they even thinking about the future and that they might want to try to strategize to get out of that building soon, right? They're thinking about that. And so if they hear you talk about that, then they may be more likely to give you your funding because they know you're already thinking that direction versus you're actually asking them to put money into their money pit. And they don't want to fund that because you haven't even mentioned that you're aware of some issues that are needing to be addressed long term. And so you begin using your sections to, so in your need statement, for example, you might talk about that. The building that we're in is, this many years old, and we're already creating a plan to replace it. And the sustainability plan, you might want to talk about how, for example, one of the big mistakes that agencies make is that they will get all of their money from one source. Maybe they started their business with grant money from one particular place, and then they had to come up with their own capital to get it going. And then they've come back to that same grantor year after year. And so they found themselves kind of stuck in this situation where all of my eggs are in one basket. And if this grant doesn't give me the money, then I don't have any money, right? And so that's one of the things that you want to really address in a sustainability plan, especially if that is your situation. You actually want to talk about how currently all of our funding comes from this one agency, but this year we began to apply to multiple different agencies across different, so now, whoops, I'm sorry. I'm applying to federal opportunities. I'm applying to state opportunities. I'm applying to local opportunities. I'm applying to businesses. I'm applying to foundations. I'm applying to, anybody that'll give any kind of money. I'm applying to those. And I'm not asking for $50,000 from each person. I'm asking for 20%, no more than 20% from any one source of my total budget. And sometimes that's more than 50,000. If that's the case, you want to start dialing that back to maybe only 10%, because you don't want to be in a situation where if one of your funding sources drops out, you are in a terrible situation, because 10% of your budget going away is pretty challenging. But if 20% of your budget goes away, you might need to close. So these are things that you need to think about explaining in a sustainability plan. So you actually want to describe. So especially nonprofits, they tend to say, I'm going to sustain this program by applying for more grants. And the reality is no, they know that. They know that you have to do that. You're a nonprofit. You only get money from donations or from grant money. So they understand that. But what they want to see you do is explain how you're protecting yourself long-term from having too many eggs in one basket. So they want you to explain, I'm diversifying who I'm asking. I am making sure that only a small portion of each is coming from each place, right? And then you're good at describing that. Well, ChatGPT will take all of those like if I was just recording that with this little microphone button right now, it would turn that into a sustainability plan. My ramblings. That's one of the major amazing things about ChatGPT is you can just tell it basically word spew, and it will turn that into a sophisticated statement. So don't be afraid to use your microphone button. I have ChatGPT downloaded onto my phone, and I frequently will use the microphone on my phone to record things, especially when I'm driving and I have a random idea and I want to make sure that I don't forget about it. I will just go ahead and record that, because once you put it into ChatGPT, it will hold on to it. So I have, huge amount of, this is something that I use all the time. So that's a key. And so what I would do is for example, if I was, we left here and I suddenly had a random thought on my way home about this particular conversation that I'm having with ChatGPT right now, I would just open it up And I would say that. I just thought of something. I want to change the sustainability plan to reflect that we diversify who we ask and that we don't ask any funder for more than 10%. And it would do that. And I want to make sure that they know that even though right now 80% of our funding comes from one source, we're actually actively making a change to that so that we can sustain our program long-term. And you actually want to kind of address that elephant in the room to make sure that they know that that is something that you're already thinking about. Because if you don't say it, you probably will not get funded. Because on your budget, you're going to show that 80% of your fundings comes from that one source. And they're going to be like, oh, whoa, these people are in trouble and they don't even know it. And so you begin to say, okay, yes, we know we're getting it all from 80% from one source right now, but this agency has been faithful and we're making changes so that we can correct that long term. So, all right. Questions, comments, send them in so we can talk about what you need to know. Okay, if there's no questions, then what I want to do real quick is I've asked, we have about 19 minutes left in this hour-long course. So I want to actually want to take a sample grant example. So I'm going to just copy this that I had ChatGPT create a fake grant opportunity. Okay. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to our page. And so now in this same stream that I have created all of this information, this fake information, I am going to put that grant opportunity in there. Now, if you don't want to do it that way, because I'm only using this for one example, because this is just a demo, right? For this fake information I'm using for animal control. So if you want to save your information, copy and paste all of the completed statements into a separate document. Okay, so ChatGPT is compatible with Word, so you can do that. If you don't have access to Microsoft Word, no problem. Create a Google Doc or something else. And then when you need that information, you can just copy and paste it back into the chat box, and it will use that information to answer those questions for you. Okay, so but because I'm working within the same conversation, I don't need to copy and paste anything back because it will know what information I want it to refer to. Okay, so let's get started on the actual. So we're pretending this is an actual grant application. I want to make sure you can see how it uses this information to answer your questions. All right, so it already is abbreviated Jefferson County Animal Control. So JCAC would like to apply to the following opportunity, right? So that's all you're going to say. Jefferson County Animal Control would like to apply to the following opportunity. So I don't know how many people that are tuned in right now do federal grant applications, but those notices of funding opportunity, those descriptions of that funding opportunity are really long in those cases. And when they are, you don't want to sit and read through a 76-page notice of funding opportunity only to find out that you actually didn't even qualify for that opportunity. So you didn't want to read that 76 pages to find that out, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to ask ChatGPT to do an initial determination of whether we qualify, right? So Jefferson County Animal Control would like to apply for the following opportunity, and I'm going to give it that information. Hold on, before I paste, please do an initial search of the opportunity to determine whether Jefferson County Animal Control qualifies to apply based on, so sometimes it's, oh, we don't help projects in your area, or, oh, we don't help government agencies. So this is this is a county government agency. They don't help government agencies. They only help nonprofits. So we want to know right away if, of course, especially if they don't service agencies in our area. So this happens a lot when businesses will post an opportunity. So for example, Costco Okay, I've applied for Costco before. Well, West Virginia doesn't have a single Costco in its borders. And even though we in Jefferson County can access two different Costco's, we can go to Frederick, we can go to Winchester, they don't consider us in their service area. And so they gave me a $50 gift certificate and a handshake, right? They are not going to help me because I'm not in their service area. So I don't want to waste time reading their information or, for goodness sakes, applying to that if I don't qualify to begin with. So you can actually use ChatGPT to help you determine to begin with if that's something that you should even be proceeding with. So maybe it's based on location. Maybe it's based on priorities. Maybe our priorities are different than theirs and we just didn't pay attention to that, or we haven't read through it, so we don't know yet. So sorry, I had to think about how to spell priorities. And then we can ask it, or any other important criteria. So we don't have to fill in all the gaps. It will think of them. So then I'm going to paste it in here. So I just did Control V to get my whole, dummy application in there. And so based on the information provided about this fake grant opportunity, community resilience and wellness grant, we appear to be eligible to apply. I actually asked it to make sure that we were. So don't worry about that. Okay. So if the certain conditions are met, here's the breakdown. So it'll actually go through and say, yes, we're this applicant type. Yes, we qualify as a local government agency. Yes, it's located in West Virginia. So these states can apply. Funding priorities are, yes. So they do trauma-informed care, community-based mental health services, food and security, safe spaces for youth, and innovative programs to prevent homelessness. So we can apply if we use the funds for personnel outreach, professional development. Okay, but they didn't talk about animal control. So maybe I wanted to ask it, okay, I noticed the qualifications did not mention animal control. You're absolutely right. It wasn't specifically mentioned. However, you can still qualify under the broader category of local government agencies. Okay, great. Right. And so I haven't spent 20 minutes doing that. I haven't spent 50 minutes doing that. I haven't spent 2 days reading an OFO. I've got this answer in just a couple minutes and I can move forward. All right. So, okay. So I gave it the actual application, right? So based on the application I provided, please answer. Wait, so based on the application I provided and using the same format. So most grant applications now are done in electronic portals or, done online. And so they'll give you a copy of the application, but you actually have to cut and paste those into the actual document in the portal. But if ChatGPT will give them to me in the same order and answer that exact question, then it's just a matter of copying and pasting. So based on the application I provided and in the same format, please answer the questions for Jefferson County Animal Control. And it does. And it'll create a grant title if you, it'll create a project title for you. If you don't want it to use the project title it comes up with, you need to go in and tell it, Jefferson County Animal Control is going to apply for this grant under its existing program, and then tell the name of the program. But it will create one just because it likes that high level order. So it will fill in that gap and come up with a name if you don't give it one. So funding priorities, it talks about how our priorities match. Okay, great. Oh, maybe it didn't. Okay, so let me go back and tell it. Sorry, I guess it didn't give me any questions. Okay, I'm going back now to the fake grant. So please give me a list of grant questions so that I can, for the demo. And that will, okay. All right. So now I'm just going to get this. Ooh, it's continuing to go. Apparently it wants a lot of fake information. Okay, so I'm copying that. I'm putting it back into my actual stream I want. So obviously we wouldn't get the questions from ChatGPT. We'd get them from the website of the agency who's providing the grant. So here are the questions. And I just copied and pasted that into the box. So that's in there. And now it will use the information I gave it in my agency profile to answer these questions. Here's it all filled out. If it has the address, it'll put it in there. If it doesn't, and the application asks for it, it'll leave you a space for that. Oh, here's my name. So it's pretty amazing. Briefly describe, so the actual question on the application, briefly describe your organization's mission and primary objectives, and it comes up with an answer for that. So you go through and read everything, make sure it's accurate. That's key. And that you like the answers that it's giving. If it's off track, you go through and say, okay, on question 11, I want to add this. On question 9, you said this, but it's actually this, right? And you go through and you fine tune that, and it will make those corrections for you. And it takes a process that is multiple days a lot of times and condenses it into, like, we've only been doing this for an hour, not even. And it's basically, if I liked these answers and they were accurate, I could turn this grant in. So it's pretty amazing. How are we doing on time? We got 9 minutes. All right. So we set out in this class to show, I wanted to show you the agency profile, making an agency profile using ChatGPT. We were going to answer specific grant questions effectively. So I showed you how to do that. I want to show you, so so this is important. So this is just kind of a little bonus way to get data for your needs statement, right? So, so I'm going to tell it I want to add research to my needs statement. So everything I've shown you so far could have been done in the free version of ChatGPT. What I'm about to show you is a bonus of buying the $20 a month plus a ChatGPT Plus account, which I definitely use it so much that I get my money's worth 100%. That may be something you don't want to do. You can just do your research separately, and you may have already done that. So, but if you want it to do some research for you, it's a very cool, it's able to search the internet if you get the paid version. And so that's an amazing feature because it has, can connect with other research tools that can do that research for you. So I want to add research to my needs statement. Please search the web for data that supports my needs statement. Because it already knows your needs statement. It's created it, right? So it knows what you're talking about when you ask for it, and it can go through and say, okay, they need data to support this needs statement. It already knows exactly what data to search for. So it's searching the web. Okay, so it's got trauma and burnout. So maybe it comes up with hits that I don't love, but I could say, okay, I really want to include details from the second, thing that you did, PTSD among shelter. Okay, or whichever of these aspects. Okay, or if it didn't like it, so I showed you a first way to get this information. I'm going to now show you a second way. So right over here so I have the paid version. So right over here in the paid version is this little box, and it's called GPTs. Okay. And notice, so we've been using Chat GPT. There's some other GPTs. And if you hit that button, it'll take you to this long list of other GPTs you can get. And some of these are still being worked on, so they're not that great right now. In time, I'm sure most of them will be pretty amazing. The one that I found that's very helpful for grant writing is called Scholar GPT. So if I would look for that, I would just search in the box, and guess what? It pops right up. So I actually have already used it. So what happens is if I hit it in here and I've never used it, it's going to look like this, and it's going to say to start the chat. When I start the chat, it's going to prompt me to ask a question. After, so I can ask it anything I want. But if I ask it, so I just clicked on one of its suggestions. So when I click on that, it's going to say, do I want to allow this outside of ChatGPT, outside of Scholar GPT agency to access it? And it's called Cider AI. And I would say, yes, I want to do that because I'm wanting it to do the research. So, so I asked it about AI, right? So it's finding out that information for me. And it comes up with a whole huge list. And then I can tell it that I want those sources cited. Okay. So please cite sources. And maybe I'm in college and I need a certain style in Chicago style. Oops. Oh my gosh. Hello. STUYLE. Sorry. And it will. And so there we go. It's got them cited and the link. And so I didn't have to go to Purdue OWL to get that. It did it for me. Okay. Based on the things that pulled up. So with these sources though, you always want to make sure two things. One, it's a real source because it will create things in that situation because it knows you want that information. So it will create some fake ones sometimes. So you always want to go through. And if it gave ones I didn't like, I can say, please only, use scholarly sources. Okay. And so it's now going back to search for just scholarly sources in the Chicago author date format that I asked for. And here they are. And again, you still want to make sure they're real, but that's a matter of clicking on them. Sometimes people will use research and it will accidentally be making the opposite point that they're trying to make. So make sure you're actually going through and looking at what article it pulled up because it may be proving opposite of what you're trying to prove. So, all right. Any questions that came in? Okay, you guys have got your questions all answered. That's great. If you come up with any questions in the meantime, though, I do want you to do that. So basically, anyways, what I was showing you is by adding Scholar GPT. So once I type a question of any kind, it will pop up over here. Do you see that? It's over here on this sidebar now. It was already there because I already have used it in the past. So if I go back to our chat, and not the AI trends, but this agency profile creation. Oops. What happened? It's not pulling it up. Sometimes ChatGPT goes down, and when it does, you just wait because it will eventually come back up. Okay, there we go. So agency profile creation. Okay, so there it is. So maybe I don't like these sources. So instead, so I've already had it pull up some sources, but maybe I want it to do some more research. So then I say, so this is what you need to know. So if you type in the @ symbol, it will pull up all the GPTs you have accessed in the past, and it will let you click on it. And by doing Scholar GPT within your existing chat, it has access to all the data in your existing chat to use when it's doing its searching. So I've just pulled Scholar GPT up. I've clicked on it. So it's right here. So let me click out again and show you again. So the @ symbol, oops. So the @ symbol, and it pulls up the GPTs. Oops. Why isn't it doing what I'm wanting? There. Okay. And then I can say, please find research to support my need statement. Oops. Okay. We have 1 minute. All right. And it pulls up some research. Okay. And then I have to go through and I see if I like what it gave me, and I can ask it for more if I want more and all of those things. When I get done with Scholar GPT particularly, I can close out and I'm still in that original chat box and can continue. And so I say, okay, please modify my need statement based on this research. And it will. And I still spelled statement wrong and it will still do it anyway. And so it'll give it to me. And then I'm like, oh, shoot, I can't see what changed. So please show me the changes in bold. And then when I go back, it shows it to me what got changed in bold letters. So I can see if I like the changes. It's pretty cool. All right. If you guys have any questions, we're out of time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email and let us know. I'm going to pull that Word document back up so you can see the address, info@jeffersoncountywb.org. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.